It's been a really long time. So in those first versions, oh, they were deplorable. They were so horrible. Oh, it was awful. All right, so let's get started here. I'm gonna share this screen with you. And then I'm gonna flip back and forth to a few things. So I'm just gonna apologize in advance for making you feel a little nauseous this morning. Okay, all right. Oops, sorry. Okay, so for QuickBooks training today, just kind of a little disclaimer. So we're gonna talk about QuickBooks as a software today. However, we're just know that QuickBooks might not do all the things that you want it to do. And the idea today is just to kind of give you an overview of what the software can do. And then remember, this is a two-part class. So we're going to cover parts of it today, and we're going to cover parts of it tomorrow. I'm sorry, on Thursday. So just be aware that I'm going to try to get to this vendors and expenses through there today, and then we'll cover the rest of it on Thursday. On Thursday also, we're going to talk about sales tax, time tracking in QuickBooks for employees or contractors, and payroll. Just kind of highlight some overviews of things of those. If you don't have them, then just feel free to leave early on Thursday, okay? So anyways, today we're going to cover just kind of an introduction of QuickBooks Online, like what QuickBooks Online is, how you get it, how much it is, how you figure out which one you want, things like that. Then we're going to talk about navigating around in QuickBooks Online, and then chart of accounts, and then we're going to cover vendors and expenses. When I'm going to try to tell you, as we go through things, some information that you might not know just from an accounting perspective as well. So I'm going to try to build in some of those things that you need to know in order to run your business well as an accountant, as your own accountant. Just to make sure that you guys understand all of those, like 1099s. I can't talk about vendors and expenses without talking about 1099 reporting. So, all right. And then you all there's a link to the handbook. So I'll reference back to the handbook, and I'll stop my screen share, and then we're going to walk through some demos as well. So just be aware that it's going to be kind of fluid today. And I think it should be fun and hopefully not too boring. Okay, so about QuickBooks Online. This is so exciting, right? You guys can hardly stand it. So QuickBooks Online, there's some technical benefits to using QuickBooks Online as opposed to QuickBooks Desktop. The first one is that it's a cloud-based software, meaning as long as you have access to the internet, you can get into QuickBooks Online. There also is QuickBooks Mobile, which if there's time on Thursday, I'll show you QuickBooks Mobile as well, because I happen to love it. And then there's the desktop apps. So the desktop apps is more like things that are included with QuickBooks or pair with QuickBooks Online to make sure that it's you can add all these plugins and features. There's accessibility across multiple operating systems, so you can use it with a Mac, you can use it with a PC, you can use it with an iPhone or an Android. There's real-time multi-user access from anywhere, and when I say anywhere, I literally mean anywhere. Like I'm going to Guatemala in April, and I'll still be able to do all my work from there. It's hosted and updated and secured by Intuit servers, so you don't have to worry about having a server environment that you run QuickBooks on. The ecosystem of apps has a lot of seamless integration. So you can find things and tools that work alongside QuickBooks Online that give you the information that allow you to automate a whole bunch of things. For example, we work with a lot of bars and restaurants, and there's, and just a shameless plug, there's a software out there called Extra Chef that literally will allow my bar and restaurant clients to take pictures of their invoices from their food purveyors, and it uploads and automatically tracks all of the individual line items of the things they purchase. And then it tracks it back to their point of sale system, and all of this automation happens automatically just from a picture that my client takes with their phone into this app that plugs into QuickBooks. So it's amazing for things like that. So the There's less data entry, which is what I was talking about, because you can automate certain things. There's no expensive equipment or network to maintain. Again, you can do it from your phone. There's no accountant copy to manage. So I don't know if you remember with QuickBooks Desktop, or if you use QuickBooks Desktop, you would create an accountant copy, send it to me. We would do all of our accountant wizarding, and then we would send it back to you. And what happens is with that accountant copy, you can't do certain things while I have that accountant copy. There's no expensive equipment. Again, you're not buying servers, and there's no networks to maintain, although, you know, Wi-Fi can be kind of sketchy sometimes. And there's no software backups or software updates, and you don't have to make backups. I have a client that still uses desktop. Some of my clients, most of them are on QuickBooks Online, but I have a client that uses desktop still, and she forgets to close it. And the computer guys yell at us all the time because they can't back it up if it's somebody has it open. And that's with the desktop version. That doesn't happen at all with QuickBooks Online. Okay, the pricing options. So there's 4 different levels of QuickBooks Online that you can choose from, and we're going to talk about each one in detail. So the first one is the Simple Start, and it's $25 a month. The second one is Essentials, and it's $50 a month. Plus is $80 a month, and that's the most popular version. And Advanced is $180 a month. There are discounts for the first couple of months that you can get. Usually it's 50% off those first 3 months. So Simple Start, and then in your packet, in your handbook, I'm on page 11, okay? So Simple Start is gonna let you track your income and expenses. It's gonna capture and organize your receipts using the mobile app. It's gonna maximize your tax deductions because all of your information is there. So you're gonna capture all of your expenses and not have to pay tax on things that you didn't, on more income than what you had. It does let you create invoices and accept payments from your customers. You can run some basic reports. You can send estimates to your customers. You can track your mileage. You can manage your 1099 contractors, which we're going to talk about that one exhaustively. You can track sales and sales tax. You're only allowed 1 user and 2 accountant users. And there's 20 plus standard reports. And if you don't know kind of what all those words mean, that's okay, because we're going to cover them later today. So accountant users, for example, I'm an accountant user, and it doesn't count as a user for you. So I personally do not like Simple Start because I'm what they call a balance sheet accountant. So I like to look at a balance sheet before I look at a profit or loss or income statement. And what happens is if there is no balance sheet, then I'm like, I feel like, you know, my left arm is missing or something. So it feels very strange to me that there wouldn't be a balance sheet. And we'll talk about the balance sheet on Thursday. Essentials is the second version. This is the one I like the most because it lets you get your feet wet without being so cost prohibitive. So everything that a Simple Start has, it allows you to manage bills. So, and your bills for accounts payable are when you owe someone money for something, but you're not going to pay them for a couple of days or a month or something like that. It allows you to use multiple currencies, which in today's global environment sometimes is very helpful. It allows you to do recurring transactions, meaning that you can automate. If you have to pay your rent, for example, every month, you can set up that bill to automatically pop into your QuickBooks and be entered for you every single month. It allows you to track your time, and that time is for employees or for contractors. It does delayed charges and credits. So for example, if you know that, like I have a client that's a landscaper, for example, and so he can go in and create a delayed charge today when he comes out and like does work on your lawn, for example, and then at the end of the month, he'll take all of his delayed charges, add them all up, put them on an invoice, and then send them out to you. So you can kind of track throughout the month what you're going to bill your customers or clients at the end of the month. There's unlimited users for time tracking. So again, employees can create timesheets in QuickBooks. Time tracking is a little weird, so we're just going to put a pin in that for now. You can track billable hours by customer. So for example, my firm, we bill our clients by the hour. So I can track within QuickBooks Online how many hours I spent on client A and how many hours I spent on client B, and then I could use those hours at the end of the month to create an invoice for my client. There's multiple users, up to 3, with user permissions. I apologize, I have to sneeze. So those user permissions, you can set defined roles so that certain people can only see certain things, and we'll talk about users today as well. And then there's 40+ standard reports, including my favorite, the balance sheet. All right, so Plus has everything that Simple Start and Essentials does, but you have unlimited users for reports only. So you can add a reports only user. One of the things that I use Plus for is we work with nonprofits, and so I can make it so that their treasurer on that board can go in and run their own reports in QuickBooks Online. It creates purchase orders. A lot of us don't use or generate purchase orders. But if you need them, they're there only in Plus and Advanced. And then you can do class and location tracking. I love class and location tracking, and the reason that I love it is because it allows you to subdivide your revenue and or expenses into certain what we call revenue or cost centers. So for example, if let's say that you manufacture a product, okay? Let's say that you make, dog clothes, okay? Coats and jackets and leashes and whatever else. So you sell wholesale to places like PetSmart or Chewy or local dog stores, things like that. But let's say you also then have an online store, and then you also have a brick and mortar location. So what you can do is you can use class tracking to track how much you can run like mini reports based on, okay, I sell this, this wholesale, I sell this retail, I sell this in my online store. So you can divide all of your accounts and all of your expenses and, all your accounts on your financial statements. You can subdivide them by class or by location. So the one thing you want to remember is that location is a one-to-one. So you can assign a location to a specific transaction, but with classes, you can assign multiple classes to multiple lines on that transaction. So we'll talk about it. I'll show it to you. QuickBooks Plus also tracks inventory. It's the lowest version you can buy that will track inventory. And it uses a FIFO method, which stands for first in, first out. So if you bought an inventory product for $2 a month ago, and you bought one today for $3, and you sell one of those tomorrow, your cost will be $2. So because it's going to create that cost at the first inventory value that was there. It does inventory bundles, meaning that if you pretend that you own a gift basket business, and if you have a cookie gift basket, for example, and you have 6 different types of cookies that you put in there, you can create an inventory bundle, which takes those 6 cookies, makes them into one bundle for a gift basket, and then you sell the whole basket. It does projects, which to us accountants is a fancy way of saying job costing. So it lets you create mini kind of profit and loss reports for each kind of job. Projects are really important for people like architects, project managers, all kinds of contractors, because you're usually bidding out those jobs in advance, and then you want to track your expenses towards what you thought what you thought those costs were going to be. It prepares and prints 1099s. It does budgets and two-sided items. Two-sided items we'll talk about today too, which basically means not only do I sell this thing to my customers, but I also buy it from my vendors. It allows for 5 users and 65 different types of reports. And then Advanced is the juggernaut version of QuickBooks Online. So this is the one that's $180 a month. So it's unlimited everything. There's list limits in some things. There's batch imports and send invoices. So if you have a whole bunch of transactions, you can import a bunch of things. You can automate some workflows. There's enhanced custom fields everywhere in QuickBooks Online. There's a ChronoBooks backup and restore, which means that you can put a, like almost, if you picture a timeline, you can put a placeholder in the timeline, and then you can roll your QuickBooks back at any minute to that placeholder. And so that's only available in advance. So if you like to tinker around with things or try out new softwares or new plugins, this might be the way to go for you. It's 25 users with advanced permissions, so you get the most granular permissions with QuickBooks Advanced. So for example, you can say that this person can enter bills but can't edit any vendors, kind of thing. There's 3 accountant users, but to me, I think there's never enough accountant users because everybody needs more accountants, right? And then there's revenue streams. There's a configurable interactive dashboard that you can use. That's kind of cool. There's 80+ reports, priority circle membership, which just means like super fast, like tech support. And then there's a Google Sheets integration. And then there's smart reporting by Fathom. Okay, so right now, we've covered kind of the things on page 11 through page 14. A couple things that I wanted to point out to you. So on page 12, midway through the thing is manage and pay bills from suppliers. Note that those bills are available in Essentials, Plus, and Advanced. You can track inventory only in Plus and Advanced, so only in the top 2 versions. Categorizing your income and expenses using class tracking on the top of page 13, that's only in Plus and Advanced. So if you have multiple locations or you have multiple lines of business, it's in the Plus and Advanced. In the middle of page 13, the maximum number of classes and locations combined, you can see that in Plus, you can only have 40 classes and locations. Personally, 40 is too many, so I don't think that that's a big deal, but I wanted to point it out to you. I think you should probably have no more than 6 or 7. And then the maximum number of user-created general ledger accounts, I just want to point this out that there's only 250 available in all the versions except Advanced. I have a client that owns a bunch of rental properties, and each property, for example, has, every time he buys a property, there's probably 10 accounts that we have to create for them. And what happens is then if he has 25 properties, that's 250 accounts already. So, so just be aware that that's there. Bottom of page 13, the Simple Start, the number of built-in business reports. Again, remember the Simple Start version doesn't have a balance sheet. And I personally don't like it, but if you're a Schedule C filer, like you are, or you're a single member LLC, the Simple Start is the way to go. So if you're nervous about costs, like use Simple Start. It's way better than using Excel, okay? All right, so Tina has a question. She said, I have a QuickBooks Simple Start, which I've used for 4 years, but I've found so many errors in my fields, etc., due to too many accountants, and COVID has changed our business. Can I just start fresh for 2022 with expenses and revenue streams in QuickBooks without losing old records? So couple of things, Tina. So with that, basically, the short answer is yes, you don't need to lose your records. So what you would do is you would back up your QuickBooks Online. If you cancel your subscription, your data would stay in QuickBooks Online for a year, even though you can access it and you can see it, but you can't do anything with it. So you can't record any new transactions. However, you can download all your data. So what I would do is I would go into QuickBooks and export the data, and I'll show you where that lives. Sorry, give me just a second. So I'll show you where that lives. But yes, the short answer is you're not going to lose any of your data. Okay, so now that we've talked about all those things, these are the plan options again: Simple Start, Essentials, Plus, and Advanced. So if you, at this point, does anybody have any questions about like the different versions of QuickBooks? We okay from here? Okay. All right, if you think of anything, type it in the Q&A, please. Okay, so let's talk about navigating QuickBooks Online. So the first thing is that QuickBooks Online is all web-based. And you must use, hold on, let me get things sorted here. You must use a web browser to access it. You can choose from any browser to access QuickBooks Online: Firefox, Internet Explorer, Safari, Edge, or Google Chrome. Chrome is probably the best version to use. And what you want to do, you can learn some tricks, and there's some best practices in Chrome, and there's keyboard shortcuts. In order to play with QuickBooks Online, you can go to a test drive company, and the links are here at the top of the page. So it's qbo.intuit.com.reader test drive, and then there's a test drive for the advanced version of QuickBooks. This allows you to do anything that you want, and it's a sample company, so you can play around with it. You can enter transactions, you can create new products. All the demos that we're going to do today, we're going to do in these versions. And it'll start out with, it kind of defaults to the same thing every time. So like it'll reset itself every time you exit and come back, okay? Okay, so Miriam, I'll answer your question now. She wanted to know how QuickBooks compares to Quicken Home and Business. And Quicken Home and Business, it's not the same at all. Like Quicken is made for your personal expenses, even if it is business, like it's not the same. So I would recommend QuickBooks over QuickBooks, over Quicken at any time. And as far as the test drive link, they'll be in your handouts. And then we're going to go there and I'll show you how to get there. And then Andrew, hold on to your question for a minute. So when you go to sign in, this is what the screen looks like. When you sign into your real company, it's going to look different from your test drive. You can also set up two-factor authentication so that it'll text you a code, or you can use an authenticator app. And once the subscription level is picked, then it's time to set up your file. You get asked a series of questions: the name of your business, what category of business or service, what category of service your business falls under, like what do you do for a living, or what do you want to be when you grow up? And if you want to convert from QuickBooks Desktop to QuickBooks Online, what elements you want to track in QuickBooks Online and what your role is, and if you have an accountant or bookkeeper that you want to add to QuickBooks right now. There's a great tool that you can use to import QuickBooks Online data from QuickBooks Desktop. However, the desktop company file is, if it's beyond a certain size, not all of the accounting records are going to come in. So if you've been using a desktop version for 25 years and you want to convert to QuickBooks Online, you're going to have to do something different. And I'll just let you email me and I'll send you the tutorial on that. But if you're just starting out, then there's no need to bring in any information from desktop. There is a function within QuickBooks Desktop that says I want to export my data or import my data into QuickBooks Online. So that feature is built into QuickBooks Desktop. Know also that Intuit has stopped developing new things for QuickBooks Desktop. They're going to fix anything that breaks, but they're not going to add a lot of new things to QuickBooks Desktop. They're focusing on online, and they want to push everyone into the online versions. So when it first started happening, like I was saying at the start, is I used QuickBooks Online for the first time, I think in 2007, and it was it was awful. But now I couldn't imagine using it without it. So it's very kind of strange. Okay, so if you, anyway, so when these little wizards pop up, you just kind of tell it like, this is what I do. These are the things that I want to track. This is my role in the company. And then you just kind of keep, firing away next, and you go through the little wizard. And then it opens your QuickBooks, and this is the interface. So this interface, this is where we're going to spend most of our time. So this one, I want you to notice this plus new button up here at the top left, this search bar and help bar and gear icon up here on the top right. And then here on the dashboard on the left, where it shows the dashboard, these things, these menu items, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about this. So this is these words: dashboard, transactions, expenses. This is the it's called the navigation bar. I just want to point out where those are. Okay. Okay. All right. Before we talk about that, let me answer some questions. So, Andrew, I'm going to save yours for now. Okay. So Pauline, it said that she has a nonprofit. Do you think I could be one of the 5 users for my own separate finance? The nonprofit is new and uses only one profile at the moment. So I think so, Pauline. I think what you're asking is yes, like everyone ideally should have their own login to QuickBooks. We'll talk about users in a minute. But what you want to do is you have a QuickBooks subscription for each business entity that you have ordinarily. So there's a few instances where you could kind of put multiple entities into one QuickBooks, but usually, and when I say usually, I mean like 99.9% of the time, you have a separate QuickBooks file for each entity. The one exception would be like my client that owns all the rental properties. He clearly owns each one in a different entity, in a different LLC, but we track it all in one QuickBooks. Okay, so, and then Tina asked if I have one for a nonprofit and one for a profit business, can I do both different businesses in one QuickBooks simple company under 2 different company accounts, or do I need to pay the fee for each business? So if it's a nonprofit, make sure if it's a nonprofit, as long as it's not like a political action committee, a 501c6, if it's a 501c3, 501c4, you can, I think about the C4, but check anyways, go to a company called TechSoup and sign up with TechSoup, because TechSoup will sell discounted licenses for business for nonprofits. It's only if you're a nonprofit, you have to register first. So buy a nonprofit version from QuickBooks or from TechSoup for QuickBooks Online at $75 a year, usually. If you have multiple businesses, again, you would need multiple instances of QuickBooks Online. And so what happens is, I'm going to show you. So the test drive companies, can you guys still see that? Will someone type in the chat real quick that you can still see my QuickBooks screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is the, so this is the test drive company, and I'll show you how I got here in a minute. But up here, do you see where it says sample company right here? So this part, if you have multiple instances of QuickBooks, you have multiple licenses, you click on this sample company and then you pick from the drop down which one you want to work with. So for example, like for my accounting firm, I click this drop down and there's a whole list of, like 50 people there. And I just go through and pick the one that I want to work on. Okay. So Tina, the short answer is yes, you would, if you have 2 businesses, you would need to have 2 different instances of QuickBooks. And Jamie, it is amazingly simple to upgrade. So I will show you how to do that when we get to the advanced settings. And yeah, Pauline, I agree with you. I love TechSoup. So if you're a nonprofit or on the board of a nonprofit or work with a nonprofit, make sure that somebody there knows about TechSoup. Okay. All right, so let's get back to it. Okay, so in the QuickBooks interface, when you're looking around in QuickBooks, hold on, I want to make sure that we're on the same. When you're looking around in QuickBooks, there's something that I like to tell my clients. So this plus new button, so if you need to add something to QuickBooks, for example, like if you got a bill or you charge something on your debit card or you charge something on your credit card, or you need to invoice your client, or you need to make a bank deposit. Like if you need to add something to QuickBooks, it goes in this plus new section, okay? If you have to do something that's out of the ordinary, like reconcile your bank accounts or set up the products and services that you sell or edit your chart of accounts because you spelled miscellaneous expense wrong, all of those things, they require more effort for our brains. So that's why you would use the gear icon, is to make our brains go. So those are the two things. So I'm going to talk about, like, are we doing something harder, or are we just adding something to QuickBooks? So if we're just going to add something, it goes in the plus new button. If we're going to do something that's more difficult that makes our brain go, we're going to do it in the gear. Okay, so I'm on page 16 now, because most of the things from page 11 to 16 are just kind of fun words that you can spend your evening reading and fall right asleep. And what we're going to talk about today, right now, is the account and settings section under the gear icon. Okay, so you would click on gear and then go to account and settings, and then it would come up with this whole list of things, right? So you would pick from these account and settings whatever you needed to do. So we're going to talk about them in detail, but there's 7 major categories of settings. You can always change these settings by coming back to this screen. Okay, the first section: company, billing and subscription, usage, sales, expenses, payments, and advanced. The company tab includes places to enter information about your company, such as the name, address, logo, your tax form that you file, your tax ID number, your EIN or social security number. The billing and subscription tab is where you would go if you wanted to upgrade your version of QuickBooks, downgrade your version of QuickBooks, add things like time tracking for payroll. They have a live bookkeeping you can subscribe to. And I think a fellow named Andrew was asking about QuickBooks payments. QuickBooks has a merchant software built into it, and this is where you would manage that subscription as well. The usage tab, you remember how I told you there was like 250 and two user limits and 5 user limits? This usage tab is going to tell you where you're at with all of those. And it's going to tell you, like, you know, if you're getting close to your subscription levels. It'll also tell you the same for classes and locations, because remember that there's only 40 of those that are allowed. The sales tab is where you would go to customize and set the default information for your sales forms. So let's say that you want it to never show decimals, or let's say that you want it to show the date as year, month, day. You can change that there, kind of thing. And we'll go over each one of these tabs too. Okay, so also on the sales forms, you're going to do, you can activate your inventory there. If you're using Plus or Advanced, those top 2 versions of QuickBooks Online, there's several other things here about, you know, how do you want the aging to show and things like that. The expenses tab includes settings that tell QuickBooks Online how to handle your reimbursable expenses and the default settings for your bills and purchase orders. Then there's a payment tab where you can sign up for QuickBooks merchant accounts, to accept credit cards or bank transfers through QuickBooks. And then the advanced tab includes settings to all kinds of the things that I like to use. So we're going to go there. Okay, so when you're in QuickBooks Online, I'll show you in the test drive. So I'm going to go to the gear and then accountant settings. And it's going to show me all of those things on the left. This company tab, for example, it lands on the company page. So here, if I wanted to change the name of my company, okay, so now I just changed the name of my company. So if there's a mistake, you can add a DBA name and a legal name, your tax ID number. You can tell it what kind of tax form you file, which if you tell it what tax form you file, depending on your tax accountant or whoever prepares your tax returns, there's ways that they can kind of dump all of your data out of QuickBooks and right into their tax software. You would create a contact email here for people if you were to email them their invoice, or you wanted your email to show on the top of the invoice or purchase orders, for example. That's what would show. Your address is here. This address, the company address and the company facing address and the legal address, these 3 will be very important if you use QuickBooks Online to collect your sales tax, okay? So just remember that. If we'll talk about sales tax on Thursday, but just write a note to yourself right now. These addresses are going to drive the sales tax rates that are built into QuickBooks. Okay, this is where these are. Okay, your usage tab, the billing tab isn't here, so we'll talk about that in just a second. But your usage tab will tell you how many billable users you have and how many chart of accounts you have. So this chart of accounts for all, I'm in the advanced version, so that the highest level of QuickBooks, this is the one that I opened here, and I have 44 accounts and my plan is unlimited. I have no billable users and I have 25 for my subscription. The sales tab, this is on page 17 of your handout. On this sales setting, you can customize the look and feel of your invoice. So I'm just going to click on this button. And there's ways to get here too, and I'll show you this later when we talk about sales on Thursday, but you can customize how this invoice looks. So you can add your logo up here, for example, you can change the colors. There's all kinds of things, you know, like let's say I wanted everything to be pink or blue or green because I'm a landscaping business. However you want to do it, it's all right there. Okay. I'm just going to go back to where I was because and then all the other things on your sales forms. So these are all the options that you can turn off and on, and there's a plethora of them here. So your preferred invoice terms. So my invoices that I send to my clients are due on receipt. So here, if I want to change that, I would just click on this pencil and change this drop down to due on receipt. These are the versions, the options that QuickBooks creates, but let's say I want to make something due in 20 days. Then I tell it that it's due in 20 days. You can also say it's due by the 5th day of each month, or it's due by the 10th, or it's due in the next month if issued within 10 days of the due date. So there's ways that you can change all the terms in QuickBooks as well. The preferred delivery method, so you can print it later, send it later, or none. However you want to do it here, it's just a personal preference. Do you want to print your invoices and mail them out to your clients or hand them out to your clients? Do you want to send them all collectively as, you know, emails, a batch? You don't email them all together, but it'll send multiple emails to multiple people at the same time, or none. Shipping, if you collect shipping, you just toggle this on and it's going to put a little box on the invoices that lets you add shipping. If you don't use it, you just leave it off. These are all your custom fields that you can do here. You can have custom transaction numbers, which means that QuickBooks will auto number the invoices. So your first invoice might be 1, for example. I don't like invoice number 1. It makes it seem like you're the first person that I ever billed in my life. So I always like to change it to 1,000. And in order to do that, you would need to turn on custom transaction numbers. Classification of tax and retail on invoices. So if this applies to you because you're collecting tax on retail invoices, you would turn this on. A service date. So let's say you, like if you're a HVAC company and you have your technicians go out all week and service all the units for your customers, and then on Friday they come back with all their work orders. You can add a service date, so you can tell people, even though you're invoicing them on Friday, that they were serviced on Monday. You can add a discount here as well, and so this discount would be, it's just going to add a flat dollar amount or percent to each one of the invoices. So I'm going to turn both the shipping and the discount on here. Deposits is if you collect deposits from your customers, if you have tips or gratuities, which is important, and if you want to use tags, which we'll talk about on Thursday as well. So tags are just another way to track certain things within your book. So it's like, it's not quite I bought office supplies, and it's not quite I bought office supplies for this customer, and it's not like, it's more like Like we use tags for our clients that got the PPP. So anytime there was an expense that was associated with the PPP, we created a tag that said PPP on it, and then we'd add that there later. So someone's asking if there's a construction or subcontractor version. In QuickBooks Desktop, there are different versions that are kind of geared towards certain industries when you get to that really high level of QuickBooks Desktop. QuickBooks Online doesn't have that. But the best version, if you want to do job costing, things like that, you would need the advanced version so that you can do those projects. Okay, then some more things about sales. So these are the products and services. So your products and services are what you sell, right? And so either you turn them on or you turn them off. I'm going to save these settings here. So you either sell things or you don't, okay? So I would recommend that you sell them. There's a SKU column. So if it's important to you and your business that you track what you sell by SKU, turn this on. If you have price rules, turn this on. Price rules, remember how I was telling you if we manufacture dog things, we could create price rules and assign them to customers based on whether they're a wholesale customer or a retail customer or an online customer. We can do all of those price rules in QuickBooks. We can track the quantity and price and rate on our invoices. How many did we sell and at what price? And we can track the inventory on hand. So this track inventory on hand, this last one, is only available in those top 2 versions of QuickBooks Online. Then there's some information about late fees. If you want to charge late fees, you can turn that on. Progress invoicing. So the person that just asked about the contractor version of, you would turn this on if you needed to do progress billing. You default messages. So when you email a client or a customer their invoice from QuickBooks, what does that message look like? What do you want it to say? You can set up reminders for your to resend emails if someone's invoice is overdue. You can edit your email options for all sales forms, and you can create statements. Okay, so this is, you remember how we got here? So the gear icon and then accountant settings. And it's so funny because it sounds like I say accounting settings, or accountant, and now it's not going. We gotta wait for my lightning fast internet here. Okay, and then I was on the sales tab. So on the expense tab, this is where you set up your settings for your expenses. So these are the things that you purchase for your business. So here, you can set your invoice, get to my expense tab. There's way less options here. So you can show items taxable on the expense and purchase form. So if you, for example, let's say you're an HVAC contractor and you purchase your some parts on the internet, and you have them shipped to you in Arizona, and you buy them from a company in Texas, and the company in Texas doesn't charge you sales tax, you can turn this on so that you can track how much sales tax you're going to owe at the end of the month for use tax. You can show tags. Remember we talked about the PPP tags that we used? You can show tags on expenses and purchase forms. You can track expenses by customer. So for example, if I needed to be reimbursed by my customer for something, I would make sure that this is turned on. And then as I enter an expense, I could tell it, oh, Tanya needs to reimburse me for this. I can make expenses and items billable, meaning, again, that same thing. Do I need to track this expense back to something that I'm going to sell to a customer or client? And there's default billing terms. Purchase orders, do we want to use purchase orders? It's turned on here. Most of the time, most of my clients that use purchase orders, they turn them on only so that the accounts payable department has to call up people and say, hey, can you get that purchase order created because we got a bill. So if you find that that's happening, just turn off your purchase orders and stop using them. And then messages that can be sent. So you can email your purchase orders to your vendors or suppliers from QuickBooks Online as well. Okay, so time is the next one. The QuickBooks time, you can, we'll talk about this on Thursday again as well, but this is where you would go if you wanted to set up QuickBooks time. which is the timekeeping feature. It's an additional paid service with QuickBooks. So you can set it up here if you need to. And then there is time sheets built into QuickBooks that you can use for free, but you have to manually enter the information into the timesheet. And we'll talk about it on Thursday again. These are the advanced settings. So there's quite a few things here, and this is my favorite screen in QuickBooks, so which just tells you how nerdy I am. So right here, the first month, it lets us do all kinds of things. So our first month of our fiscal year, so if you're a nonprofit and your first month is July, this is where you would change this so that you haven't run a fiscal year. Some clients also, even if they are for-profits, will have different fiscal years, so you'll want to change that there. The tax form that you use, your chart of accounts. So if you want to enable account numbers instead of just names, you would click this box. Where you want your shipping, remember how we turned on the shipping income and the discounts and the tips and the billable expenses? This is where all that lives. So when we say that, hey, we collected a tip on an invoice, or we add a tip to an invoice, it would track to whatever account we picked here, okay? Here's where you would turn on classes and locations. So this is back where we would have our manufacturing, our online, and our retail. These are the automations that you can set up. So do you want to automatically apply credits to things? I'm going to warn you that this does not work like you think it does. So be careful here. Because what it's going to do is, if a customer has an overpayment on their account, for example, of $100, and you issue them a $100 invoice, QuickBooks is just going to automatically apply that $100 credit to that $100 invoice and never send the $100 invoice to the client. If your clients, like me as someone who pays a lot of bills, I like to apply my credits to whatever invoices I choose. I don't want them to be applied automatically for me. So just be careful. Persnickety accountants don't like this one. And then you can automatically invoice unbilled activity. So again, remember, like if I'm tracking my time for a client, I can have it automatically add up all those hours and send an invoice to a client at that time. And then you can automatically apply bill payments, which is the same kind of thing that we talked about before with the credits. So projects, if you want projects turned on, this is where you would turn it on. Again, projects is only in those upper versions of QuickBooks. Here's where you would change your home currency. So when your home currency, if you, like I work with a nonprofit that has like a location in Africa, in Lilongwe in Malawi, and they have a version of QuickBooks Online that they use there, and Kwacha is their currency. So we changed the home currency to be Kwacha instead of the dollar. But you can set your home currency. There's a Canadian version of QuickBooks Online that you can use if you're in Canada, for example. But if you need a different home currency other than the dollar, you would change it here. And if you wanted to track multiple currencies, you would change it here as well. This is where you would change your date formats, your number formats, what you want to call your customers. Sorry, that was my note about the first one. So here, the customer label, you can call them clients, customers, donors, guests, members, patients, tenants. You can pick different names here to match whatever it is that you're selling, okay? So if you're a nonprofit, you would pick that they're donors. I would pick that they're clients because I call my customers clients. Guests, for example, if you're running like a Airbnb or a hotel, for example. So whatever you want to call them, you can change it here. This warn if duplicate is used, you should have this turned on, just because then you want to make sure that you don't use that. You should have this turned on to warn you if there's a duplicate bill number, and you should turn this on if there's a duplicate journal used. And then to sign you out if you're inactive after a certain amount of time, you can change that here also. Okay, so I want to go over a couple things and then I'm going to answer some questions for you. Okay, so the billing and subscription, I couldn't show you this screen in the test drive because there is no subscription that's included with the test drive, so you can't do anything about it. So the billing and subscription tab that would be in an ordinary version of QuickBooks, it would just be right there on the left. You would have your company ID here, which is important if you ever call tech support. But then you can say, okay, I'm using, this is how you determine what version you're using. So this would say Plus, Simple Start, Essentials, Advanced. Okay, one of the 4 options. Then if you wanted to use it with payroll, you would use it here. This is an old slide actually, so T-Sheets is now renamed to be QuickBooks Time. Oops, sorry. Got crazy with the mouse there. I told you I was gonna make you nauseous today. Here, if you wanted to use their full service bookkeeping is here. Their live bookkeeping is here. Online payments is here. This is the merchant processing part. And then if you wanted to order checks and supplies. So if you wanted to order checks that you could print with QuickBooks, it's the same check stock. It looks the same, whether it's a desktop QuickBooks or QuickBooks Online. So if you do convert from desktop to online, you can still use the same check stock that you ordered from Intuit before. You can also order that same check stock from just about any company that prints forms or makes checks. So you can order them from Office Depot, Office Max, Staples, McBee. There's millions of places that you can order them, and there's millions of coupons out there for that too. All right, a couple other usage we talked about, sales we talked about. This is the payment section. So this tab also wasn't there because it's not linked to a live payments screen. But if you were to accept and have merchant payments set up within QuickBooks, this is where you would go to open a different portal that shows you, for example, it gives you access to run someone's credit card or to see from your credit card deposit that showed up in the bank, who those payments are from, things like that. If you do use QuickBooks Payments, one, I'm going to warn you to discuss the rates. But know what your rates are, know what it's going to cost you before you sign up for it, because QuickBooks Payments isn't the best cost value, or it's not the best value depending on what type of industry you're in. So make sure that you do some comparison shopping with some of the other companies that are out there for merchant services. But if you do find QuickBooks Payments is very convenient, because what it does for you is, let's say that I invoice 3 of my clients in QuickBooks and I'm signed up for QuickBooks Payments. When I click the email invoice button to my clients, for example, it's going to go to them and they're going to get an email that says, hey, you should pay this right now. And there'll be a button that says pay right now. Then my clients will click the pay right now. They'll type in all their bank information or credit card information. And then what happens is all of that feeds through to my QuickBooks, and the invoice is marked as paid and my bank deposit is recorded too, which we'll talk about on Thursday. But all of that is automated for me because I use QuickBooks Payments. So if you send out a lot of invoices to people and they are paying you electronically, or you want them to pay you electronically, using QuickBooks Payments, even if it might cost you a little bit more, might save you a ton of time in the end. So just be aware of that as well. Okay, and then we talked about the advanced settings. Perfect, time tracking, we're okay there. All right, and manage users, we talked about those. Oh, nope, we're gonna talk about them right now. Okay, all right, there's a couple of questions, so I'm gonna hold right here and type any questions that you have in the Q&A. So someone's asking if you can sync your desktop version into your online version. Yes, you can actually. There's a drop-down menu within your QuickBooks Desktop that you would use to log in, and basically like you import your data. And then Amy's asking if she has 2 businesses with 2 completely different types of clients, one service and one product. So Amy, if you have 2 different businesses, you would have 2 different QuickBooks subscriptions. So you would have to pay for 2 subscriptions, and then you would tell it that, hey, I'm selling these ones to clients, these ones, you know, to retail customers, for example. Okay, manage users. All right, so now I'm gonna check the time. Okay, I'm on page 20. So all the things I talked about the settings are in the Okay, so Tina asked, can you have clients pay the credit card fees? Is there a button to turn that on? So a lot of times with nonprofits, when donors make donations, it'll ask if they want to pay the fee. So Tina, I honestly don't know, but I'm gonna write myself a note, see if I can find out before Thursday. You guys, I can hear my dog in the other room, and I think she might be into trouble, so. Okay, manage users. So this is, what happens is when you go into your settings, there's a manage users there under the gear icon, because remember that like we're doing something different than just adding something new to QuickBooks, okay? So to set up a user, you would click on the gear icon in the top right bar, navigation bar, and under manage users, you would pick under the your company heading, you pick manage users, and I'll show you this in a minute. Your pop-up windows have to be allowed in your browser in order to see this. And you'll see two tabs in the manage user screen, one for users and one for accounting firms. Then you would click add user on whichever tab you need, and then you would fill out the information and the different types of the different user that you wanted. So here, because we're doing something more difficult, you would go to the gear icon and then under your company to manage users. And this is where you would tell it, this is, these are the users that we would want to add. There's a little video here that you can watch, and this is included in most versions of QuickBooks, but you would just click add user and tell it if it's a custom user, a standard user, or an admin of the company. And then if you want them to report, only be able to run reports, so like for nonprofit boards, for example, or only to use time tracking. So if you have employees that need to clock in and out, but this time tracking user, this one is more, it's equivalent to them using a paper timesheet or an Excel timesheet kind of thing. So it is not, I'm going to clock in, I'm going to clock out. This one is basically, I started at 9, I stopped at 5, you owe me 8 hours. Okay, so just be careful there. Like, it's not a time clock, it's a timekeeping system. So you can pick any one of these options. I'm going to pick custom users so you can see what that looks like. And then you would tell it, yes, I want it to do this, or I only want them to do this, or I only want them to give estimates, or so you can add whatever options here make the most sense to you for whatever user you're doing. Then you would click next again, type their name, their first name, last name, and email address. And then the save button down here in the bottom right corner will light up, and then it will send them an invite at that point, which they would accept, create their password, or log in with their existing information. If you're going to add an accountant user, there's a tab here that you can see where you would click accounting firms, and this is where you would add your accountant user, for example, and then you would invite them from there. And then it's not going to work because it's the small company, but basically what happens is then it's going to send me an email. And the reason that you invite accountants as users differently from regular users, but the reason that you do that is it gives us as accountant access to certain tools that we need that are built into a different version of QuickBooks that aren't available to the public, for example, but it also allows for me to give access to your books, people on my staff access to your books without messing up your user count. Okay, so you don't have to invite the CPA on your account plus the bookkeeper. If you invite the accounting firm, you catch them all at once. Okay, makes sense? Clear as mud? All right, questions about users? Sweet, I love it. All right, if you think of one, let me know. Okay. We're going to talk about chart of accounts now. Actually, I'm going to back up for 1 minute. So the test drive companies, I know I showed you the links at the front, but on my website, which is just lucan.cpa, if you go under services to resources, there's a link right here to try QuickBooks Online. So there's a button here, and then there's 2 options. This one for the regular kind of essentials version of QuickBooks, and this one for the advanced. And when you click on this, it pops open the box, and then you tell it you're not a robot, and you hit continue, and then it will open the test drive version of QuickBooks, which is what I have open here. Okay, so that's the way that I can never find the test drive QuickBooks. And so it kind of goes in a, like, I stick it there so that we have it for later. Like I put it on my website because I can never find it when I need it. So, okay. So when you, hold on, it's going to throw me out of the test drive now. There's a funny story about reCAPTCHA. If there's time, I'll tell you about it. Okay. So when you notice, remember how I changed the name to Tanya's Super Awesome Landscaping Company or whatever? So now it's defaulted back because I've restarted the version, and it's going to turn off all those settings that I had. Okay, so the gear icon to get to your accountant settings and manage your users. The left navigation bar here in black, and we're going to go down here under accounting to chart of accounts. All right. And it's going to come up with this weird, I don't know why this window shows up here. It seems very strange to me, because if you went to see your chart of accounts, why would it make you click a button to see it again? So your chart of accounts within QuickBooks is designed to be all of the things that you own, that you owe, all the transactions with your owners, your revenue, and your expenses. And this chart of accounts eventually will populate certain ones. So your assets, your liabilities, and your equity populate your balance sheet accounts, and your revenue and expense accounts populate your income statement or your profit and loss. All right. So here, your chart of accounts drives what you see on your financial statements. So I'm going to kind of stop my QuickBooks. I'm going to kind of stop my QuickBooks training bit and talk to you as an accountant. So when you think about what you sell and how you sell it and who you sell it to, when you're setting up your chart of accounts, you need to think in a manner of like, what do I need to see when I run my reports so I know that I'm doing a good job, right? So I'm just going to show you a couple of reports real quick so that we can have this conversation. So this is a landscaping company. So you would expect on their reports to see like, okay, we're doing design work. So right here, they have these kind of income accounts here at the top. So they have design income, discounts, landscaping services, and under their landscaping services, they have fountains and gardens, plants and soils, and sprinklers. They have installation labor, pest control, sales of product income, and services. So when you're thinking about your business and what you sell and how you sell it, you need to think about, when I run this report to see like, how have I done for 15 days of February? Your revenue numbers need to be kind of broad categories about what you're selling. Because what happens is with any of these categories in QuickBooks, you would click on the number if it isn't what you thought it would be, and you could see the detail. All right. So just remember, your chart of accounts is not all of the things you sell. It's kind of a summarized category of the things you sell, or a summarized category of the expenses that you have. For example, if you think about your office supplies, right? There's probably office supplies on here somewhere, right here, office expenses. If you think about office expenses, that could be paper or toner or tape or staples or new blinds for the office, or you know, the water delivery. So you wouldn't have a paper expense, a toner expense, a paperclip expense, a staple expense. For example, we roll all those up into office expenses, right? So think about it in the same manner as, what do you sell? How much does it cost you to sell it? And that's what's going to drive your revenue and your cost of goods sold accounts. If you have questions about this, about how to plan it all out, like call up the SBDC and ask for an appointment and go through it with the counselor. because this is important to your financial statements. It's important to your growth as an entrepreneur or a business owner. It's important to, and it's important to your scalability, because what you choose here on your financial statements is very much going to drive how you run your business and what you track towards your business and towards your business goals. And you want your financial statements to say, like, this is how I'm doing right now. And if it's not what you expected, then you go looking into the number that's there on the financial statement to figure out why it's different. Okay. So, all right, now I'm going to take my CPA, lecture hat off. I apologize for that, for going down that tangent, but now we're going to talk about the chart of accounts. So in your chart of accounts, this is, again, there's bank accounts, accounts receivable, current assets, fixed assets, credit cards, current liabilities, the equity accounts, income accounts, sharing the SBDC, the Small Business Development Center. They're the ones that are sponsoring us today. They're hosting us. Income accounts, cost of goods sold accounts, expense accounts, all of these are kind of right here. So when you're using all of these things, all of these accounts, you want to make sure to set them up to be what makes sense to you. Okay. So give me 2 seconds. Hold on, I wanted to let me find something in my slides. Okay, and we're gonna talk about the chart of accounts in detail in a little bit, but know that they're here under chart of accounts. And then under the gear icon, there's a list column here, and all lists, and your chart, it's under your company, and chart of accounts is here as well. So you can get to it from the left on the navigation bar, or you can get to it up here from the chart of accounts. All right, the next thing is QuickBooks Labs. So again, back under the gear, QuickBooks Labs. This is on page 135 of your handout, but QuickBooks Labs is just a place where you can test out different things in QuickBooks that they haven't made public to everyone yet. Like, they're kind of beta things. So these, you can come and play in here, and it's just something different, The navigation bar, so this part up here, the My Experts, the Help, the Search, the Reminders, the Gear, and then this is this is your user account with Intuit if you want to change your password, for example. So this is on page 26 of your handout. This is called the top navigation bar. Then under the lists, this is page 22. So under the list menu, I'm just going to go to all lists. And again, like I didn't make the handout. It kind of comes to us as accountants. We have access to it. So it's there, but it kind of jumps around a bit. So if you back up to page 22, again, you can get to your chart of accounts from here. This is where you would go to see your recurring transactions if you have recurring transactions set up, and we'll talk about that again later today and on Thursday. Your product and service list, which we'll talk about on Thursday. Your product categories, which we'll talk about Thursday. Your custom forms. So remember, like, if you wanted to add your logo or things like that, you would find that here. Your payment methods. So let's say your payment method kind of just defaults in QuickBooks to checking. Well, let's just go there and see. So it kind of defaults to American Express, Cash Check, Diners Club, which I don't know anyone that still has a Diners Club, so correct me if I'm wrong. Discover, MasterCard, but a lot of people right now, you accept a PayPal payment. So, and then you can tell it that this is a credit card type payment, and or Stripe, for example. So you can tell it, you can add your different payment methods that you get from people here as well. All right. So I'm going to go back under all lists again. The terms are here. So remember when we were looking at due on receipt and I was making that net 20, this is where your terms would be. So you can get to it, remember, you can get to it from the accountant settings there, or it's on the all list tab. Attachments, so we'll talk about this again, but I love this feature where you can just drag and drop things into QuickBooks and attach them. So it's not going to let me do it from this, I think. So you literally can just attach whatever you want to most places in QuickBooks, and it's pretty awesome. So because then there's an electronic record as well, and then you can share them with your accountant from here as also. So back to gear, all lists again. If we had class tracking or location tracking turned on in this QuickBooks, they would show up here. And then there's custom fields. So you can edit your custom fields. Let's say that you needed to add, I'm trying to think of a good custom field. Let's say you needed to add a certain sales channel to every one of your customer invoices. So this customer invoice is, you would add a custom field for that said that you want to add a sales rep or a purchase order number or a customer type. So you could add all of those things, and then you would pick what invoices, what transaction types you wanted it to go onto. So if you were going to add a PO number, you would want to add it to sales receipts, invoices, and estimates. Okay. And then you can tell it it's only numbers, only dates, choose from a list. If you pick a drop-down list, you add up to whatever you want. So just know that that's there if you want it. And then I'm going to turn on, give me 2 seconds. I'm going to turn on classes and locations again in QuickBooks Online. Sharon, the SBDC is the Small Business Development Center. They're located all across the U.S. So the Maricopa County one is hosting us today, and they provide no-cost counseling to business owners to help them manage and grow their business, start their business. And you can find them just if you Google SBDC. Okay, so now classes has showed up here on this list, and locations have showed up. So because I turned them both on. So these menus will sometimes change based on what you're picking. Okay, I'm gonna, okay. Under the tools menu, there's a few things here that we want to talk about. So it's, Sharon, it's not the SBA though, it's the SBDC. So they're a little bit different. Under the tools menu, these are the things that you, these are different tools that you can use with QuickBooks. So manage your workflows. If you were to create a workflow in Intuit or within QuickBooks Online, you would do it here. The reclassify transactions, again, this is, let's say that you hire, your mother-in-law to help you with your books, and she decided that all Office Depot purchases should go to purchases, but you want them in office supplies. You could go to reclassify transactions and move them all at once. You can order checks and supplies here. You can import your data. You can import your desktop data. There was a couple of you that have been asking about that. So you can import your data from QuickBooks Desktop. This import data will import lists of customers, lists of vendors, things like that. So if you have something in Excel, you can import it that way. This, for the person that was asking about how you don't lose data, you go here to export data. So you can export all your information. Reconcile, you should reconcile your bank accounts and credit card accounts every month when your statements come. Your budgeting, but remember budgeting is only available in certain versions of QuickBooks. Your audit log, which will show you when something was changed and who changed it and how they changed it. If you want to back up your company, and then Smart Look and Resolution Center, like these are kind of, Smart Look we'll talk about, but the Resolution Center is, it's related to the merchant processing. So if you use QuickBooks Payments, you may have to go to the Resolution Center to figure something out there. Okay. Then we're going to talk about, actually, you know what? I'm going to answer some questions and then maybe we'll take a 5-minute break, okay? Because we're about halfway through. So Chelsea asked where you go to specifically upload a receipt. Chelsea, I'll talk to that in a minute because it depends on what kind of receipt it is. And then attachments to individual customers, we'll talk about that as well. Just to give you a preview, so you click here on the plus new, and if you had an expense or a check or a bill, you could enter them here, which again, we'll talk about in detail. And then if you were to set up something with your customers under your customer list, you can add all kinds of contracts and attachments to your customer records within QuickBooks, which we'll talk about on Thursday. And again, there's no, so for QuickBooks, Cynthia asked the best version for a small restaurant. So remember too, like it is so easy to change the version of QuickBooks that you have. So I would start with the one that has the minimum things that you need it to have and then move up from there. There's a great tool. So if you just Google it, there's, let's see if this one does, yeah. So this one, I'll do it here. So this kind of gives you the different versions of QuickBooks that we talked about. The advanced isn't here just because like sometimes they're kind of a pain in the butt, but remember too that that I was telling you that they like they want to schedule demos and things like that with that, but like it'll tell you the different things that are added on with the different versions. Oh, this is the global company. Hold on. Okay, no one watched. Like I can't type while you guys are watching. So hold on. Let me, that was the global version. Let me get you the US version. There we go. Okay, so Cynthia, about your restaurant. So if you have multiple locations, you should use the one that does class tracking, okay? So because you would have multiple stores, right? So that would be in plus at least. And these, remember I told you that the pricing, so these are showing the 70% off for 3 months because QuickBooks is running, you know, so you can sign up for a 30-day trial and then you would get 70% off. So it would be cheaper for the first 4 months. So I would just look at these things and kind of figure out which one do you need. What happens a lot of times, like my client that I was telling you about that owns a bunch of properties, is that he hit that list limit. Remember there was a 250 limit in the chart of accounts. He hit that list limit and was like, what am I supposed to do now? I'm about to buy another property. So then we had to upgrade his QuickBooks. And it literally was just, you know, we went into the accountant settings and changed his billing subscription. So it's so easy to do that it's not a thing, you know what I mean? So just pick the one that you know will do all the things that you need it to do. And if you need to turn on a feature later, it's literally 2 clicks of the mouse and you're done. Okay. So Cecilia asked, can you recategorize a bill in the reclassify transaction if it's already been reconciled? And the answer is yes, most of the time. I'm going to put an asterisk on that though, because sometimes if you remember we were talking about 2-sided transactions is one of the features. So not only do I buy this thing, but I also sell that thing to my customer. So when you have those 2-sided transactions, if you mark it as billable to a certain customer and there's a whole bunch of like invoices and sales orders and estimates linked to that bill, it might not let you reclassify it, okay? So reclassify transactions will work on most things, but not on all things. All right, so Cami wants to know, how do I correct my QuickBooks that says Alabama when we work in Arizona? So that's under accountant settings here, and then company, and then edit your address there. ACH, you can absolutely set up ACH in as a payment method, and the reclassify is only available in the advanced version of QuickBooks. But if you have an accountant, your accountant can do it for you. Okay, Fabiola says, They want to know if desktop is online is better. And I use it for bookkeeping and business and payroll, and I don't use invoice options due to the nature of our business. So again, like with QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks Desktop, like both of them do amazing things for businesses. So I personally prefer QuickBooks Online because of the automation and like how I just drug that thing, how I just drug that handbook in here into the attachments. It's going to forever be in this QuickBooks, well, until I close the sample company, but it's going to be in this version of QuickBooks forever until I go in and physically remove the attachment again. And I don't know what's going on with my lightning fast internet, so it's amazing. It's probably all of you being like in the test drive company with me, right? We're slowing it down, blowing up Intuit servers. Anyways, so when you have, it just depends on the nature of your business. Like I have clients that do manufacturing, and the manufacturing version of QuickBooks does all the things I need it to do. And I don't think QuickBooks Online is there yet. I think it'll get there, but I don't think it's there yet. And I'm going to answer a couple more questions and then we'll take a break. So Tina wants to know, my accountants seem to have an issue moving payments to the correct client invoices. We have the same amount invoices, many clients, many months. They're claiming because it's automatically matched. So we'll talk about the bank feeds and troubleshooting that in a minute, Tina, but basically like you can't use the bank feed to match transactions like that. You need to do it. You need to do it manually. Like you need to tell it this client paid us on this day. And then remember we were talking about QuickBooks payments. You might want to look into QuickBooks payments too, because if you can get your clients to click on the I want to pay my invoice button, type in their payment information, QuickBooks is going to match that payment on that deposit to that invoice, and they're not going to have this problem with it being automatically matched. And QuickBooks, I don't know if QuickBooks integrates with TurboTax, unfortunately. Even though I am a CPA, I haven't done a tax return in decades. Like I don't even do my own taxes. So unfortunately, I don't know that. I'm sorry, Miriam. Okay, and then Prince asks, I run a retail shop, so I'm interested in QuickBooks point of sale. However, it only appears to be in desktop. Is there a point of sale for QuickBooks Online? So there is not. However, if you're running a retail shop, I don't know why it's still swirling here. What you could do is, I know you want sales receipts that are probably printed on skinny paper. Oh, I've broken it now. Hold on. Okay, give me 2 seconds. I got to launch the test drive again. So I know you would want a sales receipt that prints on like skinny paper for someone that's buying something from you. But you could still do everything that point of sale does in QuickBooks Online. There also is a million different point of sale options that plug right into QuickBooks Online. So like someone mentioned that they were a small restaurant. So my favorite point of sale for restaurants right now is Toast. And I know you heard my Minnesota slow drag out there, but Toast does amazing things. So if there is a retail version, if there's some point of sale product that you love that will work for your retail shop, then you absolutely could use that and just have it link with QuickBooks Online. And I'll show you the apps later. But for example, you could go into a sales receipt, Prince, and you could generate whatever it is you sell. So I'm just gonna pretend that you are this landscaping company and you're just gonna happen to sell concrete to someone. So you could tell it, okay, I'm gonna sell you 1 concrete block for $5. And then you would tell it how they paid you, and we'll talk about all this later. You'll pick how they paid you, you'll add a discount, you'll add some shipping, you'll email them the receipt, for example. So when you can do everything that QuickBooks point of sale will do outside of like scanning guns and things. So, but I would encourage you to check other systems that integrate with QuickBooks as well. Okay, so let's take 5 minutes right now. Sorry, I was reading. Okay, so Clover point of sale, but the integration of the sync for cost of goods sold, which is a region you're considering the QuickBooks point of sale. Got it. Okay, so there's another system that I like too called Shogo, and I'll put it in the chat. So I like Toast for restaurant POS. And again, you guys are watching, so I can't type. And then Prince, try something called Shogo. It's shogo.io. So Shogo, it's very inexpensive, and it will link your transactions from your point of sale system. And they link to so many different types of point of sale systems, and it will automate all of that transactions from your point of sale system into QuickBooks Online. And it syncs every day. And when I say it's inexpensive, it's like $25 a month, which you figure is like $1 a day that you don't have to enter your transactions. So like, I'm all about, you know, saving the dollar. So, okay, so let's take 5 minutes. It's 10:35 here Central Time, 10:31 Central Time, 9:31 Arizona time, and 8:31 Pacific time. So just be back in 5 minutes. All right, I'll see you in a minute, and continue to type your questions in the chat, or I'm sorry, in the Q&A, and we'll answer them when we get back. All right, we'll see you in a minute, or 5. Okay, if you guys want to make your way back. Jamie, if you're there, Shopify does integrate with QuickBooks. So, Eileen, you want to say anything? Okay. All right. Okay, so a couple things that I want to talk about now is the adding things to QuickBooks. So remember, we use the gear when we have to make our brain really go, right? If we're just going to add something new to QuickBooks, it goes in this plus new button. And we're going to talk about most of the things on these lists in detail. But for example, under customers, you can add an invoice. You can receive a payment for an invoice. There was a woman, I think her name was Tina, that was asking about like how you match with the bank feeds. So you would want to receive payments against your invoices and then match them to your bank deposits. You can create an estimate for a customer if it's turned on. You can create a credit memo if you like need to issue a refund to someone. You can enter a sales receipt. A sales receipt is the difference between I'm going to invoice you now and you're going to pay me in the future, or I'm invoicing you and collecting payment at the same time. So that's a sales receipt. So like you go to the grocery store, they give you a sales receipt. You're a client of mine. I'm going to give you an invoice. You're going to pay me later. Okay. Those are the differences. It's just a timing thing. A refund receipt is if you have to issue a refund to someone and you're going to issue their payment at the same time. And then these are the delayed charges that are only available in certain versions of QuickBooks. Under your vendors, you can enter an expense, enter a check that you wrote to someone, enter a bill for someone for a payment that you're going to make in their future. You can pay the bills that you've tracked in QuickBooks. You can create a purchase order if you have it turned on. You can issue a vendor credit, or you can record a vendor credit. So let's say that your vendor messed something up and they're issuing you a credit. This is where you put it. A credit card credit. So let's say you bought something and then you went and returned it. This is where you would record the return, and then print checks. All of these things we're going to talk about in detail. Employees we're going to talk about a little less, but basically this is where that timesheet feature lives. So you can record single time activity or do their weekly timesheets. This feature, again, remember this weekly timesheet is more in that time tracking feature that's included with QuickBooks with the user count, not counting towards the user count. That timesheet feature is more like an Excel timesheet where you're just going to have your hours in, the time you started and the time you ended. It's not a time clock, okay? Your other, recording a bank deposit, recording a transfer, doing a journal entry, issuing statements to your customers, adjusting your inventory on hand, batch transactions. Again, this is only in certain versions of QuickBooks, these batch transactions, and paying down your credit card. This one is kind of strange, but they added it here, and we'll talk about it when we get to the bank transactions, but just know that there's, for lack of a better phrase, there's some poop there, okay? So we'll talk about those. All right, so the next thing I want to show you is a search feature. So that's up here in the right corner. This little magnifying glass has lots of different things in it. So when you click on it, it's going to come up with the search feature. And let's say that I wanted to see Amy, my client Amy. If you type, I don't know why it's not working, but if you type certain people's names, oh my gosh, this one, hold on. Because you can type certain things in the search box and it's going to come up with a variety of things. So you can type your customers' names, and it might just be because it's the test drive version. You can type your customers' names, you can type your vendor names, you can type loads of information into the search box and it's going to come up with those kind of transactions. We'll see if it's, yep, it's just not going to work in this one. You're just going to have to trust me on this one. What it does too is it also gives you all of these kind of recent transactions. So let's say that we were just recording this credit card expense for $34 and we realized, oh shoot, I forgot to put the vendor's name on it. You can just click on it from this recent transaction list in the search box, and then you can come in and choose your vendor's name. Okay. So there's all kinds of things that you can do just with the search box. A lot of times when I'm looking for something, I'm looking for a certain dollar amount. So I can type the dollar amounts in the search box and it will kind of pull up a little list here of the things that are $100, or you can click on this advanced search down here at the bottom and it's going to come up with these options that you can choose. If you're searching for dollar amounts, the one thing I want to caution you on is there's an amount and there's an amount line or total. So if you have a $100 transaction that you decided was $20 for office supplies and $80 for travel, why? Don't ask me, but just an example. If you were to search for $100 and you only picked, or if you were to search for $20 and you picked amount, it's not going to find that transaction. So if you're searching by dollar amount, just do yourself a favor and always pick this line or total. And then when you put the dollar amount in and hit search, it's going to come up with a list of those things. And if you see right here, Amy's Bird Sanctuary, I knew there was an Amy's in there. This $108, so something on this invoice is a total of $100, which is why it pulled it up. So the entire transaction is $108, but this line of gardening that we sold her was $100 and we added $8 worth of sales tax, okay? So just know that about the search feature. The left navigation bar, so these bars over here, these ones with little carrots on them have pop-out menus. So we're going to talk about most of them in detail. So the banking, the sales, and the expenses. So let's say that I wanted to see a vendor. I would go to expenses and then the vendors pops out here. And this is where I would get to my vendor list. So these are all my vendors, right? Shockingly, it looks very similar to the customer list, okay? And then under the sales tab, you'll see there's an overview, all sales, invoices, customers, and products and services. They're the same up here. So again, you can get to all of those things up here as well. So here's my products and services. One more time, on your gear, under lists, here's my products and services again. So there are multiple ways to get to the same thing in different points of QuickBooks. All right, so back to my expenses. If I want to see my expenses, there's a whole giant list right here. I find this list super unhelpful and very rarely ever use it. I do use this vendor list a lot, okay? And then all of this left navigation bar, it's on page 29 of your handout. Okay. A couple other things, your projects are here. So if you have projects turned on, again, if you do some kind of job costing, like if you have projects that lapse multiple, a long period of time, or you, I mean, I would recommend it for anyone that does any kind of job costing. So architects or contractors, any kind of contractors. So if you have a long ongoing project, you would want to track it within projects, and I would recommend you watch all of the tutorial videos that you can before you start down this path, okay? Because it's hard to unwind it once you're there. The other tabs that are here, banking, we're going to talk about in a minute. Your payroll tab is here. So if you were to set up payroll within QuickBooks, this is where you would manage your employees. There's a contractor list here where you would manage your contractors. And then you can set up workers' comp in QuickBooks as well. So this sample company is in California, which is why it's talking about California workers' comp. Your budgets are here. So if your version of QuickBooks lets you budget, your budget is here as well. But remember too, it's also up here under budgeting, right? So again, you can get to it in two places. Your reports are here on the left navigation bar as well. There's a performance center. So this performance center is the same as this. The performance center is the same as the drop downs here get you to the performance center, but within the report part of the navigation, there's 4 different kind of sub reports that you can look at. So there's management reports, multi-company reporting, custom reports that you built, and your standard reports. This multi-company reporting, we'll talk about it if there's time, but basically, if you have multiple businesses, there's ways that you can aggregate the reporting together from different QuickBooks versions, okay? Your taxes are here, so your sales tax. I'm gonna warn you about sales tax in QuickBooks. It can be really, it can go off the rails very quickly. So understand what you're doing with sales tax, watch all the tutorials, talk it over with a QuickBooks expert, you know, just make sure you really know what you're doing before you like turn on sales tax within QuickBooks. We'll talk about that on Thursday. 1099 filing is here is also, so if you do have to issue 1099s to someone, you can use QuickBooks to do it. I personally use a service called Tax 1099. And I'll put that in the chat, but don't watch me type because I can't type when you're watching. But Tax 1099 will do, Intuit actually bought them. So Intuit owns Tax 1099 now. And Tax 1099 will file your returns as well. Intuit does a great job. So if you have a lot of 1099s, feel free to file them within QuickBooks Online. Make sure you download copies because they actually turn off access to the forms that you filed. Sometime around like August, I want to say August, September, and they don't turn it back on until January. So just be careful there because it's not, you can't get to them always. So make sure you save PDF copies. Mileage is here, and on Thursday we'll talk about the app and mileage, but this is probably one of the coolest features in my opinion of what QuickBooks is doing. Your accounting tab is here. This is where you can see your chart of accounts again. And you can go to the reconcile feature as well to reconcile your bank accounts. Remember too, that's also in the gear icon. So when you can go into the gear, here's your reconcile, and then your chart of accounts is here. All right. And then my accountant for all of those cool cats in your life. So you can add an accountant partner here, and it'll send them an invite. If you don't have one and you want to find one, there's a pro that you can find here. The SBDC has recommendations for accountants. You can reach out to them. You can find them through any state society. The state society keeps a list of accountants. And then QuickBooks Online has a list of pro advisors that can help. Okay, so Sharon, you can go to accountant and click find a pro to help for an expert. And then, or you can just search the QuickBooks community database, which I'll show you again too. And then Tim, yes, you can hide old things and old, not necessarily old expenses, but you can hide old customers. So I'll show you how to do that. All right, so we're gonna go to the page 31 and we're gonna talk about your expense center. So we're gonna kind of cover this. So now everything that I've kind of showed you to this point is kind of like how just kind of like where things live in QuickBooks. I do want to tell you one thing though. If you're like, why does QuickBooks do this thing? And I don't want it to do that, I want it to do this. What you should do is like literally just run a search on how do I customize, don't watch me type, my invoice in QuickBooks Online. And it will literally come up with the tutorial or a YouTube video. Like it will show you the step-by-step instructions. So I want to just tell you, like, one of the things that you can do if QuickBooks Online is doing something dumb that you don't want it to do, or you want it to do something different, Google it and just Google it as you would ask any person a question. And what's gonna happen is you're gonna find the answer. I'm almost like 100% of the time. So let me get rid of this. Okay, so in your expense center, so I'm on page 31 of your handout. And so you have your expenses and you have your vendors, and your expense center, there's some transactions here, and we're going to cover this in a demo, but you can look at both of those. Your sales, I'm going to skip that for a second. I'm going to talk about your chart of accounts some more too. So I apologize for that. So your chart of accounts are down here, right? Or under your gear, and your chart of accounts here. So you can get to it in two places. And then I wanted to work through a demo. So on your chart of accounts. So now we're gonna jump forward to page 41. and then I'm going to show you how to do some things within the chart of accounts. So you need to decide first if you want to use account numbers. So I personally, I could go either way with account numbers. Some CPAs and some tax accountants are very particular. So remember, if your accountant wants you to use account number, that is not the same. I'll show you this one. So this is your checking account. This is not the same as using account numbers. So you don't type the number ahead of the name. So you would go into your account settings and you would turn on your account numbers in your advanced settings. Let me get the page to load here. So in your chart of accounts, enable account numbers is here. So when you turn this on, I'm going to save this here, and then I'm going to go back to my chart of accounts. And remember, I can go here under the gear icon. Hold on, it's thinking. I can go under the gear icon to chart of accounts, or I can go under accounting to chart of accounts. And it didn't turn them on. Hold on, give me 2 seconds. I think this demo company is going to be the death of me today because it's not going to do all the things that I want it to do. Okay. I suspect it's just not going to do it. Yep. Okay. So here's your numbers. So it puts a box for the numbers here. And then when you save this, it's not showing the account number here, but we can change that setting to show the number, right? So there's a few things that you can do in this window. And so, so if you decide if you're going to use account numbers. If you're not going to use account numbers, don't even worry about it. I personally don't think it's important. So unless someone tells you to use it, don't use it. So then if you, to create a new account, so let's say that we wanted to start, let's say that we're going to start selling beer along with our landscaping, right? So we're going to click on this new button because we want to track our beer revenue that we would collect from our clients. So the account types, your options here, these are a variety of things that you can choose from. So it's not accounts receivable, it's not a current asset, it's actually an income account. And then there's a detail type under each type of account. So you can pick kind of what it is. What are we selling, right? And so it's sales of product income. If we were to example, pick an expense account type, these detail types change, right? I find these detail types, really kind of strange. So you're welcome to pick the one that most applies to whatever it is that you're choosing. However, the one thing that you want to watch is, do you see how there's these names and then there's types here and then the detail?
Tanya, you froze.